Welcome to Off Balance, the podcast where faith, family, and business collide. I'm Dr. Brooks, a certified master life coach, transformational speaker, and author. Join me as we explore the journey of overcoming adversity and developing resilience. It's time for you to find your strength and reclaim balance. This is Off Balance.
Welcome to Off Balance. I'm Dr. Brooks, your host, here to inspire, encourage, and empower you with practical wisdom and biblical principles. Today's episode is about building your content roadmap. My guest today is Coach Tajanel, a content creator, coach, strategist, entrepreneur, and devoted wife and mother. Coach Tajanel empowers aspiring creators to build impactful online platforms by blending faith and creativity. So please welcome to the show, Tajanel. Hi, Coach Tajanel. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for joining the show. I am so excited to have you. So can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm a content creator, coach, like she said, entrepreneur, but I love rooting everything in my faith. And so that's literally what I love to do, is just help people navigate, find their voice even in content creation. But I'm also a wife, a military spouse. I'm also a mother to 3 children. And I just enjoy helping people. That's really like what I love to do no matter what. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
That is awesome. So again, thank you for joining. So I want to know your journey as a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and a content creator coach. That is so inspiring because it sounds like a lot, but I think if you have balance, it's really not. So can you start by sharing how your faith and personal experience have shaped your approach to empowering creators to build impactful platforms?
Yeah, so I feel like I started off with humble beginnings, but literally, I believe that me getting through those hard moments and just building on that has helped me to develop a certain mindset, and that just go getter attitude has helped me as well. And so I feel like when you take time to just observe, because that's literally what I did. I started from the bottom, like anybody else. Nothing, nobody's showing me how to do anything. And I am somebody that soaks up the room. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to study. And so that's what I did with all my platforms. I gave myself 3 years to figure out if I even enjoyed it. And I feel like a lot of people wouldn't do that. But I really wanted that because I'm like, this is career based. I'm not trying to do this kind of for kicks and giggles. Like that's me scrolling and being a consumer. I want to do this for something more. And so in that process, I learned my weaknesses. I learned my strengths. I learned how to navigate. I learned how to get over certain fears. Even the camera, like being on camera, everybody goes through that. But to practice in a mirror and just, go over things, even just saying my name. And then I know everybody dreads, being outside, vlogging in front of her, taking pictures. I did all of that with my son. My husband was deployed for 9 months. And so I was doing a lot of things on my own. But I think showing up and just taking the reign over my life and saying, no, I want to do this for real. I think that's really like what I've learned over time and just been able to develop in that aspect.
I like that you shared that you said you was going to give yourself 3 years, because I think when people see that person that goes viral, or if they see that person that just appears to pop out of nowhere, they think that, they don't have to put in work, and they think that it's going to happen overnight. So I am so glad that you shared that you actually gave yourself a realistic timeline, because content creation can be very, very hard, especially for Christians, because sometimes Christians can feel like they have to separate the two. They have to separate their content from their faith. So I am so glad that you shared that. So can you share a defining moment or an experience from your personal journey that led you to where you are today, particularly in overcoming adversity?
A defining moment, and it's specifically with content creation. I would say, honestly, from the start to the finish, just me, like here and now. And I'm saying that because even to this day, I have to overcome, right? And that's
Yeah.
the funny part a lot of people don't get. But that moment that, like, when I decided, okay, I'm going to be a content creator, I get the jitters. I'm like, oh, I'm really doing this. And it's so funny because I didn't go live first. I didn't live stream. I was recording myself, but you still feel as though like there's a huge audience in front of you. And so some things that I used to do would just record it and say, hey, just record it and you're going to delete it. Like, forget that. And that kind of like helped motivate me. And until it got to a point where I was like, no, let's put it out there. Because if you don't put it out there, it's just not going to be out there. And what I told myself along with those 3 years is like, for the first like 3 months, we're putting out everything. I don't care if it looks terrible. We can edit stuff, but put something out there. And it's funny because, like I said, even to this day, I can I feel like I talk better like this. I feel like I live stream better. But when you're in front of the camera, it's kind of like you want this persona to come across. And so you will like stop, you won't talk. It's like so many things.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah. And so I still deal with that. I still have to kind of hype myself up and say, hey, you've been doing this for a while. You can like be yourself if that's that kind of day. You can have a script if you want, but you own it. Like, these type of things. So even to this day, I feel like I still have to practice the very things that I started off with, which to me says a lot. Because if you want to start off strong, do what you would do in 5 years, right? Do it at that point, at your starting point. But even not, like, you have so much room to grow. And I feel like people don't appreciate that. But I appreciated it at that time.
Yeah, we definitely always have room to grow. And I can relate when it comes to recording versus going live. Because when you go live, people can see your personality, they can see, your energy. But when you are recording, sometimes you can say something and then you're like,
right.
As being, I don't want to be judgmental, or I don't want to feel like I'm being sarcastic. And so then I do the same thing. So I will have so many shots of a 5-second video that have taken me like 2-3 hours. And so I'm like, no, Brooke, just post it and move on, because what happens is you will waste a lot of time. You will waste a lot of time trying to be perfect.
Yes.
And so I'm so glad
I want to add to that. There was a point in my life, which I think all of this is good, because I remember when I used to vlog, you know how like your parents would record you when you were younger and you could just watch it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I had to tell myself, this is not that. And so sometimes we can have a lot of content and think people want to watch all of that. And you come to yourself and you're like, oh, that doesn't necessarily matter. So that just comes with maturity as well. But I think all of it is necessary because it's going to get you to the place that you want to be at. So.
Yeah, that is so true, because sometimes you can record and then you will notice that you are long-winded when you see another video on your timeline that's long-winded, and you're like, get to the point. Like, and you see that you start speeding the person up trying to get them to the point. So I think that we have to be mindful as, creators, the platforms that are appropriate for short content and long content. So when you work with your clients, how do you kind of guide them with that? Because sometimes people have a made up mind. No, I want to be on this platform because this is a popular platform, but certain platforms is not for everyone. So how would you approach that as a coach?
I give them, I try to discover what they're trying to do. Because, some people don't even know that they're on the wrong platform. I actually just had a client. She's just like, she's having this issue too. She's like, but Tay, I want to say more, like, and I don't have time. Like, is it okay? And she's on TikTok. And I'm like, this is a short form platform. And she's like, she doesn't want to budge. And I said, hey, you might need to pivot. And it's not like a forceful thing, but it's like, have you considered YouTube? Yeah. Because it is for long form, and they would love you. They would eat you up every day because you do have something to give. And if you find it hard that you can't pull it down, that's fine. Nobody's telling you to change anything. Just pivot to the right platform so you can get the stuff out, get your value out there. But that's where I start. And then I'll add the facts, because I know kind of like the algorithms for each platform and things. And so when I could paint that picture for them, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, it probably would be better if I were on a different platform. But sometimes they don't. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just work on it. Let's see what happens. Because it's funny, on TikTok, they do have 10 minutes, but it's still a short form content. So I'm like, hey, that is available. I don't know if the algorithm is going to love you at first, but it can get to know you. It can get to love you. And so, I like letting them decide. I always tell them, God created all of us to create. So I believe if he's like pressing on you about something, let's just try it. If it's not working, I'm going to let you tell me it's not working.
Yeah.
We're going to figure that out, and then we can try something different.
See, that's good, because what I've noticed with TikTok is, as a person that used to be on TikTok as a live host and doing content on TikTok, what I've noticed is TikTok has kind of given a trophy to everyone.
Yeah.
And so basically what happens is there are a lot of creators on TikTok and they don't really have substance with their content, but they are, they have a reach, because a lot of people are on TikTok for fun. Yes. And so when you have those content creators that's trying to be serious, or those content creators that's trying to educate, they have a hard time sometimes with their reach on TikTok. So a lot of those people are on multiple platforms, because you have to kind of find your audience. Okay, where's the audience of the people that really want to be educated, the people that really want to be taught, or the people that want to be entertained? And so you do have to find your balance on TikTok, because TikTok will have you feeling like, if you're a serious creator, that you're not doing a great job. And that's just not that, but that's just not the algorithm for TikTok. Right. In my experience, TikTok likes gossip. They like the jokey joke stuff. And they just like, the different things that are not as, for someone that's trying to educate. And so with that being said, how have you been able to sustain your platform and really grow your platform? Because your content is very faith-based, and your content is more so for those that are trying to grow in Christ, and for those that are trying to grow in marriage and in family. So how have you just done a great job with your continuous growth?
I would say, first of all, obviously, like, knowing the algorithm, but also starting from the beginning. Like, I started off as a predominantly beauty industry girl. And so that was just my heart. That's what I did. But once I found out that I wanted more, I knew, and that's the funny part too, because within that industry, people are very superficial. People are very, it's a lot of terms I can use, but so it was hard to build a community, and that was the word: engagement, community. And I've tried so many different avenues on there. So when I pivoted, like, my niche and like my purpose to something else, like faith-based, and just started talking more about that, I found community quicker.
Yeah.
And that helped everything, because everybody's like-minded. But we all need that. And that's what I feel like. And I'm not saying, like, if anybody's in the beauty industry, not to do this as well, but it didn't work in the same capacity as it is for me when I pivoted. But I believe that can go like both ways. Like, if you feel like something's not working, consider something different. Like, there's not just one side to you, and just listen to the voice of God, listen to what he has to say. And so once I did that and made those changes, I focused heavily on community. I was joining your live streams, and you built me up, and other people's live streams, and they built me up. And then I started focusing more on the live streaming aspect. I was still posting here and there, but all of that in one led me to a space where I could be myself, but also give value and have a community behind me that supports me. And to me, all of that plays into a part. And I do think it's different on different platforms. Like TikTok, you can grow community very quickly, because they love authenticity. So live streaming on TikTok to me is like, if anybody want to grow, like, okay, include live streaming. You don't have to like only do it, but I would include it there. And then YouTube, like, they're serious. They're like, I want to learn. Like, I want to be a student. I want to soak things up. Instagram is kind of like for your bougie people. But either way you can grow. Yeah. Either way you can grow. And that's what I've learned is, like, where do I fit in and where do I want to grow the most? Because you can, like, bring people, that audience, over to another platform. And I think that's just the name of the game. Just finding out where you love the most, where you love to be at the most, even like for your own, you as a consumer, like where are you on the scrolling the most or like watching videos and stuff the most, and then go from there as far as you wanting to be an entrepreneur on that platform as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you keep saying pivot. I know in my personal experience, sometimes when you mention pivot, people think that they're failing or they can
Mm.
think that they, need to give up. So, what encouragement would you have for someone that they actually should just pivot versus, throwing in the towel? And what can you say about the kind of negative connotation that people have towards having to pivot?
I would say, I always say start off with prayer, right? And this is again faith based, like I can't get away from
Yeah.
it, but I always say pray about it. And I've done this. Like I felt like God told me, Tay, you're supposed to be in content creation, but maybe not in this niche, maybe not in this
Okay.
industry. And so I would feel that tug a lot of times. Um, and what I would say is to keep searching, like, because again, I believe God has put many seeds inside of us that has potential to grow something, and just explore, just keep searching, keep searching. I always talk about Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, seek ye first the kingdom and his
Hmm.
righteousness, and then all these things. So to me, like that's what I'm based a lot of things out of. Even when it came to live streaming, like how I found you was because I was still searching. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, God, you want me to stay in content creation, but I don't know what to do. And he's like, live stream. I'm like, cool, but I'm not really getting anybody in the room. And then I found you. And I'm like, oh, look at that. And so you were just at first just an encouragement. And I'm like, wow, she's powerful. She's, a woman, not like somebody timid or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he was able to speak many things through you, not even me directly because you didn't know me, but that's my advice. Like keep searching and God will point you in the right direction for what you need. And for those who find it as a negative thing, I feel like you have to know and be confident in who you are. Like you are not a mistake, and your gifts are not a mistake. But again, I think it always goes back to who your audience is. Like, are you in the right platform? Are you in the right spaces? Are you meeting the right people? And I feel like even I take that even business wise, like when it comes to marketing and stuff,
Hmm.
you're not trying to sell a fish to, a horseback rider. They don't want nothing to
Yeah.
do with it. So you're really trying to find somebody that wants, what you have. And that's why I say just be open to that pivot, even when it comes to your niche. I always also like to say, God has given me many gifts, but you won't see Tay out here double dutching every day, and then speaking in Spanish, and there's so
Yeah.
many things to me. But what does God also want me to focus on, and why is that the case? And so sometimes if he tells you to pivot, he's just saying, hey, let's just go here. It's not to say that one day you won't be able to tell your story, right?
Yeah.
There's many layers to you and it'll be a pleasant surprise, but I need you to be the master of this situation or of this thing that you got, or this skill. And, I feel like just be open to it because you never know. You never know.
That is so true. And if a person has the ability to pivot, that is definitely a characteristic of someone that is resilient. So, how do
Mhm.
you define and cultivate resilience in your life? And what advice do you have for our listeners on developing their own resilience when they face challenges?
I would say I feel like I define resilience based off of repetitiveness, like just not giving up. I always say it's the until factor. So and I think it's so funny because when I even study the 1% of people, right, like the
Yeah.
wealthy, like the successful, they say that too. It's like they won by default because they're like they looked around and oh, I'm the only one left. And so for me, I also give this analogy, like I understand like your situation now. If you could get $100,000 more than what you have now, it would do a whole lot of good, right?
Yeah.
But would you feel differently if you got it 5 years later, 10 years later? You would still feel like, oh man, I needed that. Even you could have $100,000 in your bank account then, but $100,000 more, it doesn't matter. So to me, that's that until factor. Like you have to want it that bad because you to me you're outworking yourself, you're outworking others, and as long as you just keep going until you don't see anybody else, even spiritually, like you just don't see nobody, it's just you and God. you will be surprised at where you show up or where you end up, the spaces and places that you'll go, all because you just didn't stop. Because even with my beginning, there's people now, they have so many more followers than me, so much more, videos and views.
Yeah.
And their skill hasn't necessarily, to me, improved like a tremendous amount, but they just kept going. And that's that default. Like they just kept going. I'm like, what in the world? But it to me, it just proves my point. Like, just keep going. Don't stop. If you really want it that bad. If you don't, if this is just like something I can do. Like I started off giving myself 3 years because I wanted it that bad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That is so true, because it's just all about being consistent. Sometimes we can start strong and then we can kind of lose the momentum. So it's definitely about being consistent. So can you share with listeners, what do you have going on? Any upcoming trainings? What things can we expect from you?
Yeah, so I have an ebook out. It's for newer content creators, but also those who are kind of stagnant. And it has a lot of material in it. It defines every which way of content creation.
Yeah.
But it also gives you materials, resources to use. And that is in my website. And on top of that, I have a course coming out. It is a YouTube course. It is kind of like a course just to help anybody who's very serious, who wants to grow on YouTube. And I'm very hands-on. So I love to just, sit down with people and like, no, let's get it done today, that kind of thing. So it's what I'm shooting for is for it to be 4 hours. I always say 4 to 4.5, because I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen. But about 4 hours on the last day of February, so the 28th.
Okay.
And I just want to help everybody like get kickstarted, even those who are in it, who just want to grow at whatever capacity. We could tweak things during that time. Like that's what I want to do. Get everybody off to a good start, break things down clearly, but be there as a support. Like if you got questions, let's handle it now. If you don't know, if you want to change something, this is how you can change it. Maybe you don't know certain terminology, but you hear it all the time. You're like, how does that benefit me within this niche? And we can talk about all of those type of things. So yeah, my goal is to come out with like different webinars and things like that throughout the year, so that way I can help people in real time, but also create books. I'm working on a book as well. That'll be coming out later on in the springtime. But just giving now every part of me in tangible forms that people can use throughout the year. So yeah.
That's awesome. And so I will make sure, everyone, that I have her information in the description of this episode, so that you guys can reach out to her, so that you can purchase her ebook and actually follow her on all of her social media platforms. And so you mentioned that you are a live host on TikTok. What days and times are you live?
So TikTok, I go live Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Central, which is 8 a.m. Eastern. And then I added Saturday. And it's called the Ambassadors of Christ training.
Okay.
And all I do there it's at 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. But we literally talk about what it means to be a follower of Christ. I feel like some people come into the room like, hey, I'm a Christian. And I'm like, it's like, there's no other evidence other than just that, And so I understand a lot of new people are coming to the faith. They like, I don't even know what to do. So I just took that day to kind of squeeze that in. I've also moved my subscribers only live to Saturdays as well. So that's literally right after that. But yeah, that's when I go live, and I've been enjoying it. I've definitely, Coach Brooks, you've seen me grow. So
yeah, you have grown a lot. And where are you with your 75-day Christ walk?
So we just wrapped it up.
Christ walk?
Yes, we just wrapped it up yesterday, actually. And it's so funny. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm actually about to extend that. We're going to start it over again on March 1st. And 75 Christ Walk is similar to like 75 Hard, 75 Soft, if anybody's familiar with that. But it's more spiritually led, spiritually driven. So there's still 4 different tiers. You're dealing with your mind, your spiritual relationship with God, as well as exercising and eating, but also your finances, or I got a little, I guess we can call it a bonus, but like cleaning up house, where like you can purge whatever you want, either internally or externally. And I think this is going to stretch people more, but more people have actually like reached out to me. So I'm like, let me make this like a legit thing where we can have a community involved, and we can have like feedback and stuff, and before and after pictures and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to start that on March 1st, and I'm going to send all of that information out. But I'm excited about that, because I remember when you and I were talking about that, and you were like, hey, God got you there because something's about to happen and change.
Yeah.
And to see like that was yesterday, and I'm a completely different person from when I started it. And so
yes, you have grown so much, and I like the vulnerability in your posting your content when you were cleaning your home and you were trying to declutter, and you was just very vulnerable and you were transparent, and I really, really enjoyed that. And so, listen, I am so proud of you.
Thank
75 days, that's a lifestyle, right? That's a lifestyle. So there is no way that you can go back to not having your Bible studies, not having your prayer time.
I can't
there's
even
no
imagine.
way that you can go back.
I can't imagine it. I really can't. And I think that is like the purpose of 75 Christ Walk, is because when God is at your center, and some people, they might add in like, okay, I want this to be like how I start tithing, or how I start, kickstarting fasting. All of that is good, because Christ needs to be at the center of it all. And I'm grateful I can be the face. I don't have to be like, oh, I didn't do it, but my clients did it.
Yeah.
I can know this works. And even like starting content creation, like you can add that to it. Okay, I'm doing 75 Christ Walk. I'm walking out every part of me with God. Let me add what I want, for my business or content creation or anything else to that. And I think that's a great challenge. So
that is so good. Like I said, it's all about consistency. Just to watch your growth and your development, it has just been a good ride. Like, you have really blossomed into the woman that God created you. And so it has been an honor to watch you. And so if you have not joined her live, I encourage you guys to join her live. She does a really, really good job of just explaining the word of God and how to apply it. See, it's one thing to hear a message, but it's all about application, right? Because we can hear something all day, but it's that application. How are you applying what you are hearing? So many people jump in all of these different spaces, but they're not applying what they are hearing. And so that's why we're not seeing any growth. And so if you want to grow in any area of your life, you have to apply whatever it is that you are learning.
Yeah.
So this podcast is all about balancing faith, family, and business. So balancing faith, family, and business, it can be real challenging, and I can attest to that myself. So how do you navigate this delicate part in your own life, and what strategies or practices have been instrumental for you in maintaining balance?
I would say, honestly, and I don't know, maybe I'm just different, but just agreeing to what is happening. And I always use this just because people literally ask, how do you do it as a mom of three? And I find that question so funny, because I'm like, because I am, and I get like some people aren't, and some people, they don't receive where they are.
Yeah.
And so for me, I can't separate my business from my faith, from my family. I just can't do that. And it's because it all supports each other. If it wasn't for my husband watching my children, even now, can I do this type of business, right? And even in that, like, God has given both of us the grace to like be in this moment. And so even back to like the scenario of me being a mom, it started off with me and my oldest son. And so to me, that speaks to, where are you right now? Like, it could be humble beginnings. Just start there. And when it was me and him, I did all that I could. And then my daughter came, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I had you, because I didn't know about this one. Like, having a daughter is different from having a son. But growing in those seasons, and even finding out that the seasons look different. Like, my son's a boy, my daughter's a girl, obviously, but my son has speech delay. He was a pandemic baby. My daughter is just a talkative little girl, and she's just flourishing. They're two different things. And same thing, like with your journey, it might look different, but you can handle the load because you've gone through it. And now I have my youngest son, so it's a mama of three. I don't act like I'm a mom of one anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've grown. I can handle them. They know my voice. I know how they operate for the most part. Um, but asking for help, me and my husband just collaborating, knowing what I can do, what I can't do, having boundaries, all of these things, maturing in that walk. Same thing, even here, even like we were talking about resilience.
Yeah.
You can't act like you're not in your 10 years ago. You're not walking the same route that you were like 5 months ago. Even you're somebody different, and the spaces and places that you've been is a lesson learned. And I believe like taking that with you and saying, oh yeah, I can learn from this and I can pour out to somebody else with what I've learned. So that is like the best way I can answer that, is just take on
No,
exactly who
that's
you are.
good. And it's definitely important to make sure that you are always mentoring and coaching, because you mentioned that you are a military spouse, and I love myself some military spouses. My husband did 28 years 2 days, and so he's been
Mm-hmm.
retired for 2.5 years. And so throughout his military career, I was FRG leader. I just used to do a lot with the military community, and so being a spouse, you definitely have to be resilient,
Yes.
especially if there's any type of deployment, field exercises, if they're just working late, it's a lot. And so
Yes.
you have to, as a military spouse, for people that are not in close proximity to military, they don't understand it. You literally have to be a person that can survive by themselves.
Yes.
Like literally, you have to be able to, when you relocate, build a new community. Like you just have to be a person that's adaptable. And even in, just life, adaptability is so important. And so when you say you went from one kid to two to three, that's adaptability, because
Yes.
you have to be able to adjust. You have to be able to say, okay, this used to work, this doesn't work anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's even the same when it comes to anything that we do. And so I am so glad that you said that, because I'm like, yeah, you definitely have to grow through situations.
Yeah.
But sometimes we dwell in places that we should have just, kept passing through. And so, as a final thought, what would you leave with people just to get them to kind of just make sure that they're always, looking ahead and not dwelling in a place or a situation that kind of makes them feel like that they are not what God has called them to be?
Mm, that is a good question. And it's funny, today on TikTok, we talked about putting on the full armor of God. And specifically, we talked today about the helmet of salvation. Um, and I think raising your awareness of
Mhm.
the truth, just who God says you are, that helped me a whole lot. And people don't necessarily understand that everything is spiritual. So your thoughts hold weight, which is why even in the Bible, God says, tear down strongholds, tear them down. Why? Because they're
Yes.
hostile to God. But not only to God, you're seeing the evidence. If you can't move, if you feel stuck, if you're like, dang, I woulda, shoulda, coulda, you're seeing the evidence of when you hold something there and you're not able to move. So for me, I can recall, and I always talk about this. I remember when I was in my shower, and God is like, just consistently play things that don't make sense, but it speaks about your future.
Yeah.
And like I would just play, you could, gospel, or preachers, or even like a millionaire speaking about their lifestyle. And I'm like, whoa, like, and it shocks the system, because you're like, what in the world? Why am I listening to this? But the more you put things into your ear, faith cometh by hearing. So the more you put
Hmm.
it in your ear, and people like you having people in your face that are like, where you want to be. And it doesn't have to be financially all the time, but just even spiritually or
Yeah.
with confidence, no matter what, but put yourself around them. Because eventually you're going to start like feeling like, okay, I don't want to drag them down, and I can't drag them. So if I want to keep hanging
Yeah.
around them, I kind of got to adjust myself. And just doing that and being consistent, give it like 2 weeks, and just like you'll start seeing yourself think differently. It'll come as a maybe I should do something. I don't know. Maybe I see Coach Brooks keeps hosting this, webinar about writing books and stuff. Maybe I should join. You'll start questioning things
Yeah.
and start moving, and then before you know it, you're hosting your own courses and like doing all kind of stuff. You're traveling abroad and you're like, wow. And that's only 6 months later. Now everybody's journey is differently. But that's what I would start with, is like, start with what's going in your ears, your eyes, like who are you around? And try to get around people and hearing things and seeing things that are like where you want to be, and just let that cycle through you over and over and over again.
Yes, because you definitely don't want to get left behind. I always tell the people the story of when Jesus was going out to get his disciples, and he approached the guy, and the guy was like, his dad was sick, and he told him, let the
Oh,
dead bury the dead, right?
Jesus.
And so we
That was
have
a
so
bar.
many excuses, but then once we see the people that we started with, it's like they are one after the next, like they're accomplishing, they're doing all of this stuff, but we made excuses, right?
All
And
the time.
so, could you have imagined if he was the 13th disciple? He made
There,
excuses. I need
there
to
were
go
so
back and
many. There were so many potentials. And
yeah,
that's the thing. That's the funny part. There was so, even it's funny because even with Judas eliminating himself at the
yeah,
end, there was still somebody else that like took his place.
hmm
I'm like, and that to me, that even speaks to people who say it's too saturated. Obviously
or
not.
what God has for me is for me. Is it really?
Yes. Yes.
Is it really? Because we saw examples in the Bible where it was for them, but they missed it.
They
So can
miss
you
it every
can you
time.
truly say what God has for me is for me? Because if
Every
you don't say
time.
yes, He's gonna move it along to somebody else. And the
Every
good thing is
time.
He's a gracious God, and He may bring it back, but you don't know. You can't
Oof.
keep depending on God may circle the block. No,
And let
God
me
has to
let
get
me
it done.
let me say something about that, just so you guys can understand, because I everything that people see now was supposed to be 5 years ago. And it's not to say I didn't have the confidence or anything, like it's not, but the tenacity to keep going, that
Mhm.
wasn't in me. Like I was making excuses. Even when you mentioned like you being a military spouse, you got to be. I wasn't strong enough then yet. I mean, I was strong, but not like
Yeah.
I am today. And so there was a lot of things blocking me, and I would make that excuse like it's just too hard. I should just stop. But then I would have this desire, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. But then I would drop off again and again
hmm
and again, and it took me like just going all the way down. I mean, I just went in a negative spiral, and God just sat me down and it's like, what do you want? And it's funny because that story reminds me of the man at the pool of Bethesda.
Yeah.
And Jesus is like, what do you want? And I'm like, he's like, I just want to be well. But he even made an excuse.
He
And that's why
did.
Jesus was like, well, what do you want? Because I can save you, right? You ain't got to get in the pool. Like your story is not going to look like everybody else's, but I'm here. So what do you want? And once I was even honest about that, he's like, well, let's show up as that then. Because it's not, it's everything is, and that's what he kept showing me. He would send me people like moment after moment telling me, Tay, there's so much, but oh, Tay, I see it. Oh, and I'm like, God dang, like, what am I missing? But that kept me going because I'm like,
Yeah.
if people are seeing things and I'm just sitting on it, I don't want him to, and it took 5 years. And so at this point, 2024, he's like, hey, Tay, the wave is coming back. Do you want to ride the wave? I'm like, yes, I'm gonna ride it this time.
I am so glad that you're riding the wave, because sometimes we can really, as Christians, we can be lazy. We can be lazy, and we have to remember that faith is action, right?
Yeah,
And so it's not just enough to pray about it and believe. It's what steps are you taking to be able to walk in everything that God has for you. And
absolutely.
so we just have to remember that God is going to see us through, but we have to give him something to work with. That's just like when in my, years ago when I wanted to pursue an education, we moved a lot, so I couldn't go to traditional colleges. So when people like you have your degrees from online, absolutely, because that's the
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle that we had. Going
Yes,
overseas and PCS in every 2 to 3 years, I had to get it how I had to get it, and so I
yes,
chose a route that worked better for me. And so that's why you have to be able to adapt. I don't care
yes,
what it is, whatever your pursuit is, you have to be able to adjust your mindset and to just trust God and know, okay, God, I know you're calling me to do this, but how do you want me to do it? Because my journey is going to look different from your journey. All of our journeys are going to look different, but the one thing we have in common is Christ Jesus, right? And
Yes.
one thing about Christ Jesus, he will never fail. He will
Never.
never fail. You just have to put yourself in a position to where you hear from God.
Mm-hmm.
Not from your favorite podcast host, not from your favorite television host. You have to put yourself in a posture to where those people confirm and they don't sow it.
Yes.
See, a lot of the times we search for people to sow the seed in us. No, they are confirming what God has already placed on the inside of you.
Come on.
That's why I tell people a person should not be giving you new information from Holy Spirit, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Holy Spirit is so intimate with us. He is going to give us everything that we need, and he will send your brother and sister along to confirm, to encourage, to motivate, to help you kind of navigate or figure it out. And so that's why it's just so important to have your own prayer life, to have your own study life, and to have that time of fasting. And so if you guys are interested in joining that new 75-day Christ Walk on March 1st, I am telling you to go ahead and connect with Tajanel, because that is going to be life-changing.
Yes.
That is going to be life-changing. If you can get past those 30 days, those first 30 days, it is going to be something that is going to be so life-changing.
So
just so life-changing. I wish you guys can see the transformation. No, seriously, the transformation that Tajanel has made.
Yes.
Just by being consistent and just by being disciplined. Because we can make excuses. Oh, I'm too busy, this and that, but we can watch our favorite television shows. We can go to our favorite restaurants. But for some reason, when it comes to the business of our Father, we make excuses. And so I am so proud of you, and I'm so happy about all the things that you're doing. So again, I am going to have all of her social media tagged in the description of this podcast. And then I'm going to have her website information. And for all of you that want to join her on February 28th for her YouTube class, I will also have that information. So again, Tajanel, thank you so much for joining. It has been a pleasure having you on this episode. And of course, you are a friend of the show, so you are always welcome back.
Yay! Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to rate this episode and share it with your family and friends. To learn more about your host, visit brooksdenny.com. Until next time, be resilient.